In this talk, we will learn about the different tissues present in vascular plants. Similar to animals, plants show different levels of organization. All plants are made up of cells. The cells then come together to form tissues. The tissues then come together to give rise to organs like leaves or roots. Different organs come together to form an organ system, like the shoot system or the root system. And finally, the organ systems work together to form the organism, which is the plant. There are two main organ systems of vascular plants, the shoot system and the root system. The root system is usually present under the ground, and its primary function is to take up water and minerals from below the ground. The roots also provide support to the plant. Unlike the root system, the shoot system is present above the ground. Its primary function is to take up carbon dioxide and light from above the ground and synthesize organic compounds. Another function is similar to the root system, which is to provide support to the plant. The root and shoot system of plants are made up of organs. There are three main organs of plants. The roots, which are part of the root system, absorb water and minerals, while stems, which are present above the ground, usually connect the roots to other parts of the plant. Within the stems, right at the top, there is the apical bud that allows the plant to grow in height. There are nodes on the stems from where branches and leaves can arise. At the base of the nodes, there's usually an auxiliary bud that allows the formation of branches. Between two nodes is the internode. The third organ of plants are the leaves. The leaves perform photosynthesis, which allows the plant to make organic compounds from inorganic carbon dioxide. They can also form reproductive structures. Many different parts of cones and flowers are actually modified leaves that help in reproduction. The organs are made up of different types of tissues. There are two main types of tissues, which are the meristematic tissues and the permanent tissues. The meristematic tissues are those that have the stem cells of plants, which are called as meristem cells. The meristem cells are undifferentiated cells that are capable of forming any type of plant cell. They are capable of self-renewal, which means that they can undergo cell division to give rise to more meristem cells. They also can undergo cell division to give rise to different types of specialized cells, which are called as differentiated cells. Plants have different types of meristems. The first one we're going to look at is the apical meristem. The apical meristem is present at the tip of the plant or the apex of the plant, as well as the base of the plant where the root is. It promotes increase in height of the plant. The second meristem is the intercalary meristem, which is present near the internodes as well as the base of the leaf. It allows the internodes to increase in length as well as for the leaves to elongate. The lateral meristem is present on the lateral side of stems as well as roots. It helps with increasing the girth or the thickness of the stem and the root. The apical meristem is composed of delicate cells that are protected by the plant. The root apical meristem is usually covered by the root cap, which offers protection, while the shoot apical meristem is protected by the leaf primordia. The apical meristems give rise to primary tissues, which form the primary plant body. They promote the extension of roots as well as shoots and hence help the plant to increase in length. They promote indeterminate growth, which is growth that occurs throughout the lifespan of the plant. Lateral meristems promote secondary growth in the stems and roots of the plant. This is usually associated with increased thickness, which is also called as an increase in girth of the stem and roots. Let us take the example of a tree and look at the stem of the tree. The part of the stem that is at the tip of the branches, as well as the tip of the tree trunk, is thinner than the part of the stem that is part of the main tree trunk, as well as where the branches meet the tree trunk. This increase in thickness is due to the lateral meristems. Similarly, when we look at the roots, the tip of the roots are thinner than the part of the roots that attach to the stem. This increased thickness in the stem and root is essential because it provides additional support to the plant body, especially when the plant is very large, like that of a tree. Lateral meristems give rise to secondary tissues that will form the secondary plant body. There are two main types of lateral meristems. These include the vascular cambium and the cork cambium. The vascular cambium gives rise to secondary xylem and secondary phloem, which are part of the secondary vascular tissues. They promote the transport of water and nutrients throughout the plant. As shown in the picture, we can see the vascular cambium cell, and the cells that will form the secondary xylem are towards the inner side of the vascular cambium, while the cells that will form the secondary phloem are on the outer side of the vascular cambium. The secondary xylem grows more and more inwards, where the oldest xylem cell is much more inner in the stem compared to the younger xylem cell. Similarly, the phloem grows outwards, where the oldest phloem cell is most outwards, while the younger ones are more inwards and nearer to the vascular cambium. The cork cambium gives rise to cells that will form the cork of the trunk, which is the outermost part of the plant. The intercalary meristem is present only in monocots, which are a type of plants belonging to the clade of angiosperms. The intercalary meristem is found at the internodes or the base of the leaves. It aids in the elongation of the internode as well as the elongation of the leaf. Meristematic tissues differentiate to give rise to permanent tissues that are present in all the organs of the plant. There are three main types of permanent tissues. The dermal tissue forms the outer protective cover of different parts of the plant, which includes the roots, the stems, as well as the leaves. The vascular tissue is the tissue that transports fluids and dissolved substances throughout the plant. The third type of tissue is the ground tissue, which is the tissue that exists between the dermal and the vascular tissue. The ground tissue can have a variety of functions, which includes storage of different types of material, photosynthesis, secretion of different compounds, etc. The arrangement of the three different tissues can vary in different organs. While the dermal tissue is always present in the outer part of every organ, the vascular tissues are normally present in the center of roots, but they can be scattered around in the stem. In the leaves, they are mostly present in the center but can also be seen in other areas. The ground tissue is always going to be there between the dermal tissue and the vascular tissue. All tissues of the plants are made up of eukaryotic cells. The general features of a plant cell include the presence of a cell wall. There are two main types of cell walls. Every plant cell begins with a primary cell wall, which is thin and flexible and made up of cellulose. It is thin and flexible to allow the plant cell to grow in size more easily. The secondary cell wall is formed in some plant cells. This cell wall is thicker and rigid. It is placed interior to the primary cell wall, and in addition to cellulose, it can contain another compound called as lignin. Within the cell walls, there are pores that can mediate transport of different types of substances between neighboring cells. These pores are called as plasmodesmata. Inside the cell wall is the plasma membrane of the plant cell, which is a phospholipid bilayer. The plant cell has many different types of membrane-bound organelles. This includes the nucleus, where we can find the DNA content of the cell, the endoplasmic reticulum, which includes the rough and smooth endoplasmic reticulum, as well as the Golgi apparatus. The plant cell also possesses mitochondria that aids in generating energy for the cell, and chloroplasts that have pigments that allow the plant cell to harness energy from light and use that to prepare organic compounds from inorganic carbon dioxide. Plant cells tend to have a central vacuole, which is important in maintaining the turgor and the shape of the cell. Plant cells can also have a peroxisome, which helps in the detoxification of compounds. They can also have a ribosome, which is a non-membrane-bound organelle that plays important roles in protein synthesis. The main types of cells found in plants are the parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma, water-conducting cells that are found in the xylem, and sugar-conducting cells that are found in phloem. Let us look at each one of these. The parenchyma cells are the most common types of cells found in plants. They have thin and flexible primary cell walls and do not show the presence of a secondary cell wall. They have a large central vacuole and are known to perform most of the metabolic functions, which includes storage of different types of compounds, photosynthesis, etc. Parenchyma cells that have an abundant number of chloroplasts are called as chlorenchyma. When a plant gets injured, the parenchyma cells can divide and differentiate to form other cell types of the plant. Collenchyma cells help support the young parts of the plant shoot. They provide flexible support but do not restrain growth in any way. Thus, they allow the plant shoot to bend but prevent breaking from occurring. This is commonly seen in celery sticks, for example, which have a stringy texture. That stringy texture is because of the collenchyma cells. Collenchyma cells can be grouped into strands. They are elongated cells with unevenly thickened primary cell walls and usually do not show the presence of secondary cell walls. Sclerenchyma cells are similar to collenchyma cells in that they provide support. However, they are much more rigid than collenchyma cells. This is because they have a thick secondary cell wall that contains lignin. Lignin is present only in vascular plants. Sclerenchyma occurs in parts of the plant that are no longer growing. In order for the sclerenchyma cells to perform their function of providing support, they have to die and hence are dead at functional maturity. There are two types of sclerenchyma cells. The sclerids are short and irregularly shaped cells that have thick lignified secondary cell walls. They can occur individually or be present in groups. They are found in parts of the plant that are very tough, which includes the shells of nuts, seed coats, etc. We can also have long and slender sclerenchyma cells that form fibers because they are arranged in threads. We're able to see these type of fibers in hemp, so on and so forth. Vascular tissues comprise of xylem and phloem. Xylem transports water and minerals to different parts of the plant. The cells that make up xylem are dead and are lignified at maturity, indicative that they have thick secondary cell walls that have lignin as part of them. There are two types of cells found in xylem. The tracheids are dead cells that taper at an end and overlap with one another at those tapered ends. The vessels are the other cell type found in xylem, which are continuous tubes of dead cylindrical cells that are arranged end to end. At the ends of these vessel cells, there are perforation plates, and this allows the easy transport of water and minerals. Phloem is the vascular tissue that transports food like sugars throughout the plant. The cells of phloem are alive, unlike the cells of xylem, which are dead at maturity. When we look at the different types of cells in phloem, there are sieve cells that are normally observed in gymnosperms and seedless vascular plants like ferns, while angiosperms show the presence of sieve tube elements that are sometimes also called as sieve tube members. The sieve tube elements do not have any nucleus but are associated with companion cells that do have nuclei. These companion cells have plasmodesmata that allows them to communicate and exchange material between the sieve tube elements. Thus, even though the sieve tube elements do not have a nucleus, they are able to take ribosomes, proteins, and other material from the companion cells. At the end of the sieve tube elements, the wall has many pores. This region is called as the sieve plate or sieve area. Now that we learned about the different cells present in plants, let us learn about the composition of the tissues in plants. The dermal tissue is the outermost covering that protects the plant. It forms the epidermis in plants that don't make any wood. This epidermis is usually only one cell layer thick. In the case of plants that make wood, like trees, the dermal tissue forms the periderm. This is a multi-cell layer that includes the cork and the cork cambium. The formation of the cork and cork cambium results in the replacement of the epidermis. The dermal tissue is made up of modified parenchyma cells, which form epidermis cells as well as guard cells. The cells that form the epidermis have very few, if any, chloroplasts present, and hence do not play significant roles in photosynthesis. They do have hair-like extensions, and this can be in the form of trichomes that are found in shoots and leaves of plants, or root hairs that are found in roots. These root hairs increase the surface area of the root and hence helps in better absorption of water and minerals. Guard cells are sausage-shaped cells that surround an opening. This opening is called as a stoma, or the plural term is stomata. The stomata serve as a passageway for gases like oxygen, carbon dioxide, and water vapor. The guard cells regulate when the stomata are open and when they can be closed. Ground tissues are tissues that are neither dermal nor vascular. The ground tissue normally surrounds the dermal tissue and the vascular tissue. Ground tissue that is found internal to the vascular tissue is called as pith, while the ground tissue that is near or external to the vascular tissue is referred to as the cortex. The ground tissue can be made of different types of cells, which includes parenchyma, collenchyma, as well as sclerenchyma cells. These cells can perform different functions, and hence the ground tissue is associated with photosynthesis, providing support to the plant, and serving as a site for storing different types of materials. The vascular tissue of plants includes xylem and phloem, which aid in the transportation of water and nutrients. The vascular tissue of a root or stem is called as a stele. In the case of angiosperms, the stele of the root is in the form of a solid central vascular cylinder. On the inner side of this vascular cylinder is the xylem, while the phloem is surrounding the xylem at different places. The vascular tissues in stems and leaves are divided into vascular bundles. The vascular bundles are strands of xylem and phloem. In the case of dicot plants, the vascular bundles are arranged as rings in the stem. When we look at them more closely, we can observe that the xylem is usually always facing inwards, while the phloem is facing outwards. In the case of monocot stems, the vascular bundles are not arranged in any type of particular shape. They are scattered throughout the monocot stems. When we look at them more closely, they look like faces. The arrangement of vascular bundles changes when secondary growth occurs. We saw that in primary growth, the xylem is the inner part of the vascular bundle, while the phloem is the outer part of the vascular bundle. When secondary growth occurs, the primary xylem, which is the original xylem, is the innermost part of the tissue. Surrounding the primary xylem is the secondary xylem, which in turn is surrounded by the vascular cambium, which is the lateral meristem that gives rise to the secondary xylem and phloem. The secondary phloem surrounds the vascular cambium, and it in turn is surrounded by the primary phloem. Vascular bundles are also observed in leaves, and they form the veins of the leaves. As we can see, if a cross-section of a leaf, the vascular bundles can be present at different regions depending on where the veins are. The veins not only harbor the vascular bundles, but they also provide support to the leaf and can act as the skeleton of the leaf. It should be noted that no secondary growth occurs in leaves. With this, we come to the end of our talk, where we learned about the general structures present in a plant cell, as well as different types of plant cells. We learned how different types of plant cells come together to form different tissues in the plant cell. This includes the meristematic tissues and the permanent tissues. Within the permanent tissues, we learned about the dermal, ground, as well as vascular tissues.